Good morning, sir and classmates. Today, we will discuss Module 3, which is all about environmental legislation and review processes. The contents of the module includes NEPA, or National Environmental Policy Act, and Council on Environment Quality, the NEPA review processes, which has three subcategories, environmental impact statements, supplement to the environmental impact statements, and some major environmental laws in the Philippines, which the module discusses 5 of them. First, we have to define what environmental legislation is. Environmental legislation is basically a collection of laws and regulations concerning the quality of air and water, wilderness, wildlife, and other environmental factors. This means that any law or regulation that concerns with the environment is a part of environmental legislation. We have been indoctrinated since we were children by our homes and schools that the environment is important and we should do all our best to protect it. But it is necessary to put the concept of saving the environment into law, so this way the people and companies will have to follow them. In the context of aviation, these environmental laws help in reducing the effects of aircrafts, airports, and the production or manufacturing of these two towards the environment, especially to air, water, and wildlife. National Environmental Policy Act Review Process. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, process begins when a federal agency develops a proposal to take major federal action. These actions are defined at 40 CFR 1508.1. The environmental review under NEPA can involve three different levels of analysis. These are the categorical exclusion determination, environmental assessment or finding of no significant impact, and environmental impact statement. So basically, the NEPA review process is a step-by-step process to which an agency will follow whenever they propose some action, may it be a law or regulation. The reason why a review process exists is because it is important to analyze in its entirety the proposal. Since the proposal entails the environment, any possible effects that occur must be taken into consideration so that any adverse effects can be prevented before they happen. Just like reviewing before an exam, reviews for any proposal is done so that mistakes can be minimized. And so, the three different levels of analysis will be discussed by the following reporters.
So, good day everyone. Ako si Cedric Jimenez para i-report ang unang level ng NEPA analysis. Ang tawag dito sa unang level ay yung Categorical Exclusion Determination or yung KTEX tinatawag. Ano nga ba yung KTEX? Sa madaling salita, ang KTEX ay ito yung mga certain actions or different actions ng mga federal government or federal agencies rather na napatunayang wala namang masamang epekto or walang significant effect doon sa environment. Ano nga bang iba't ibang examples nito? So, una, pwede rin itong example nito is pag nag-install sa airport ng windsocks or ng landing lights or ng mga puppy lights, ganun. Or, overall, pwedeng repair ng airport, as you can see here on this picture, airport, taxiways, runways, anything inside the airport. Pero, once na lumabas na sa airport yung repairs or lumabas dun sa boundaries ng airports, ibig sabihin, meron na itong certain impact doon sa environment. So, dito, makikita natin na meron tayong documented KTEX form. Ano nga ba ito? So, galing to sa FAA or sa Federal Aviation Administration. Isa itong document na basically it serves as a template for different agencies to have. Okay? So, ito makikita natin, meron dito sa link na to, na included dito, yung document na to is meron siyang iba't ibang questions for iba't ibang agencies. Kasi syempre, kapag sa KTEX or kapag agency ka at gagawa ka ng KTEX, kailangan mo magpasa ng letter of solicitation doon sa iba't ibang agencies na concerned dun sa project mo. So, yung letter of solicitation na to, kasama dito is yung documented KTEX form. Meron dito iba't ibang tanong, are there historical cultural resources listed on the national ganyan-ganyan? So, dito, may sasagot mo kung, or may sasagot nung agency pala na pinagtatanungan mo, pinagkakonsultan mo, kung KTEX nga ba yung gagawin mong project. Okay? Kung makikita natin dito, yung second question, does the project have the potential to cause effect? If yes, describe the nature and extent of the effects. So, ayun. Ganun siya. So, pag nagsend na tayo sa iba't ibang agencies na concerned dun sa project natin, halimbawa, yung Tennessee Wildlife Resources or Institute Archaeologicum Germanicum, ibig sabihin nito is yung Archaeological Institute of Germany. So, meron tayong tatlong scenarios na pwedeng mangyari. Pwedeng una is wala silang response. If nangyari yun, walang response within 30 days, ibig sabihin, automatically, KTEX na yung project mo. Pangalawa is no objection, response. Ibig sabihin na ito, nag-respond sila, pero sinabi nila is walang effect or walang impact yung project mo. Therefore, KTEX na ito. At pangatlo naman is meron silang concerns. Okay? Has concerns. Pag nangyari tong has concerns na to, ibig sabihin, kailangan na natin gumawa ng environmental assessments. Isa itong way of analysis na nagsasabing we have to re-examine the project to determine its bad effects or to detect the bad effects it has. Okay? So, kung maalala natin dun sa una, yun sa KTEX, yung pangatlong scenario dun na sinabi na merong impacts or merong concerns yung agencies na involved na kinonsult mo. Ibig sabihin, hindi na KTEX yung project mo. Okay? Hindi na KTEX yung action mo. So, an EA determines a federal action effect can cause significant damage. Kailangan, dito sa EAs, meron tayong iba't ibang info. So, kailangan nandito yung purpose and need for the proposed action. Andito din yung mga alternatives na gagawin natin para dun sa project. Andito din yung mga environmental impacts of the proposed actions and alternatives. Saka dito din, lastly, is yung mga agencies saka mga tao na kinonsulta. Okay, so dito naman sa environmental assessment, kung meron tayo sa KTEX, nung una is yung documented KTEX form, dito naman meron tayong NEPA Environmental Assessment Checklist. So, dito sa NEPA Environmental Assessment Checklist, meron tayong makita na different agencies din na involved. Halimbawa, dito sa picture na to, makikita natin, una sa land development and code, tapos source of documentation. So, yung sa land development, ang ibig sabihin lang nito is ito yung agency na involved. Nandito yung compatibility, urban impact, slope, erosion, soil suitability. Yung code naman, andito yung mga impact codes na gagawin. Take note lang na itong checklist na to ay i-consult mo doon sa agencies ulit. Kung ano yung napansin nila or yung nakita nilang mga environmental impacts ng project mo. Pwede na lang itong lagyan ng 1, no impact anticipated, hanggang 5, requires project modification. So, yung source of documentation, it basically is the contact person or yung pinagkonsultahan mo ng codes, or impact codes about sa project mo. So, ayun nga, pagkatapos nating magkaroon ng environmental assessment, syempre, kaya nga assessment, meron ding result yon. So, it has two choices lang. It either has an environmental impact or significant impact or not. Okay? So, kung walang significant impact, etong FONSI, yung mangyayari naman. So, yung FONSI is yung finding of no significant impact. Sinasabi lang dito, it basically says that the action does not significantly affect the environment. So, hindi na kailangan ng EIS or hindi na tayo kailangan mag-proceed dun sa pangatlong analysis at pwede na tayong tumuloy dun sa pag-implement ng action. Pero, paano nga kung halimbawa naman merong significant impact yung project mo? Ibig sabihin nito, kailangan na natin mag-proceed sa EIS, which will be reported by my groupmate.
Good day, I am Josh Galang at i-discuss ko sa inyo ang isa sa mga major environmental laws in the Philippines. Presidential Decree 1586, Environmental Impact Statement of 1978. It was formally established in June 11, 1978, signed by President Ferdinand Marcos. Ang main objective ng law na ito ay i-maintain yung balance between the environmental protection and the socio-economic development in the Philippines. This law serves as a planning and management tool na makakatulong sa ating government, project proponents, and affected communities na i-address yung mga negative impacts and risks of a certain project on the environment. It aims to protect the environment despite the increasing demand of natural resources and development to attain sustainability. In addition, EIS covers a monitoring program sa mga different environmental locations sa ating air, water, and soil. Even the development program for the existing community na maapektuhan ng mga projects. The DENR Environmental Management Bureau or DENR-EMB, nag-i-issue sila ng mga permits or certificates like the Environmental Compliance Certificate and Certificate of Non-Coverage. So, these two certificates are issued by the DNR-EMB to certify that the project is environmentally safe. Just a quick information about these two certificates. Ang Environmental Compliance Certificate or ECC is a document that certificates that a proponent has complied with the requirements of the EIS system. While the Certificate of Non-Coverage or CNC is a document that certifies that a company is not covered by the EIS. So meaning, hindi sila required mag-submit ng ECC. Proceed po tayo sa types of projects. So, these projects ay required sila mag-submit ng Environmental Compliance Certificate, and these projects are industrial projects and developmental projects. Under industrial projects, meron tayong examples tulad ng power generation plants, manufacturing plants, electrical transmission lines, and petroleum refineries. While sa developmental projects, meron tayong examples na housing projects, ports, seaports, land ports, airports, and highways. Then, meron din po tayong specific criteria for determining projects to be covered by the EIS. And these are the following. Characteristics of the project. So, under the characteristics of the project, covered po nito yung size of the project, cumulative nature of impacts sa ating environment, the use of natural resources, generation of waste, environment-related hazards, and risk of accidents. Second one, yung location of the project. So, covered naman ito yung mga disturbances sa ecosystem na cause ng isang project. Ano rin nito yung relative abundance, quality, and regenerative capacity of natural resources in the area na pagtatayuan ng nasabing project. And the last one is yung nature of the potential impact. It covers naman yung mga magnitude and complexity of the impact. Under EIS, we can categorize the projects into 4. Project categories A, B, C, and D. Under project category A, ito yung mga environmentally critical project. So, ito yung mga projects na mayroong very significant effect sa ating environment once na na-establish sila. So, they are required to secure an Environmental Compliance Certificate or ECC. And examples ng mga projects under category A ay yung mga oil refineries, mga mines, and etc. Sa category B naman, so ito yung mga non-ECP. It significantly affect the quality of the environment located in environmentally critical area. So, they're also required to secure an ECC. But yung only difference nito sa category A ay hindi siya masyadong critical sa ating environment kapag ito ay tinayo. But still, meron siyang impact. So, examples nitong category B ay yung mga buildings, bridges, housings, at iba pa. Sa category C naman, so ito yung mga environmental enhancement. So, from the name itself then, it directly enhances the quality of the environment. It also directly addresses the existing environmental problems. So, isang example nito ay yung mga seawalls. Pinoprotektahan ng mga seawalls yung ating environment against erosion and flooding. So, they are required to submit a Certificate of Non-Coverage or CNC. And yung last naman ay yung category D. So, ito naman yung mga projects na hindi covered ng EIS. So, di sila covered ng EIS kasi wala silang significant impact sa ating environment. And still, they are required to submit a Certificate of Non-Coverage. Under EIS, yung mga violators ay punished by suspension or cancellation of their certificates or fine for each violation. So, these violations are the following. First one is yung projects that operate without an ECC. Second one ay yung violation of rules and regulations ng Environmental Impact Statement, Environmental Compliance Certificate, and Environmental Management Plan. Lastly, yung misinterpretation of documents. Ang EIS ay merong 12 sections. And i-discuss ko sa inyo yung pinaka-important lang, which are the sections 1 and 2. Section 1, it is all about the basic policies and operating principles of EIS. So, alam naman natin na ang main objective ng EIS is to ensure the rational balance between socio-economic development and environmental protection. Through this balance, it can benefit the present and future generations. So, ito naman yung mga key operating principles ng EIS under Section 1. First, the EIS covers the direct and indirect impacts of a project sa ating biophysical and human environment. So, yung EIS din ay ini-ensure niya na yung mga impacts na ito ay addressed by appropriate environmental protection and enhancement measures. Second, yung EIS din ay tinutulungan yung mga project proponents na incorporate yung mga environmental considerations in their project. Plus, they also help to determine the impact of the project on the environment. Third naman ay yung mga project proponents must determine and disclose all relevant information needed for methodical assessment of the environmental impacts of the project. Yung review of EIS shall be guided by 3 general criteria. Una, ay yung environmental considerations are integrated into overall project planning. Second, the assessment is technically sound and propose environmental mitigation measures are effective. Third one, yung social acceptability is based on informed public participation. So, ito yung mga iba pang key operating principles of EIS. Proceed tayo sa Section 2. So, Section 2 ay yung objectives ng EIS. So, objective ng Presidential Decree na ito ay is to rationalize the EIS system to make it more effective as a project planning and management tool. So, bukod sa main objective na sinabi ko kanina, so, meron ding other objectives ang EIS. Una ay maging responsive sa mga demands and needs ng project proponents. Pangalawa naman ay is to clarify the scope of the EIS to the project proponents. Third naman ay yung is to establish a standardized requirements for the project proponents. Fourth, gawing simple yung mga application ng environmental, Compliance Certificates. So, or ECC. And last, yung environmental concerns must be discussed during the project development and implementation. That's all. Thank you.
So, hello guys. Good morning. This is Simon Carmona and i-discuss naman natin ngayon ang dalawa sa mga major environmental laws ng Philippines. First na i-discuss ko is the Republic Act 6969, also known as the Toxic Substances and Hazardous and Nuclear Waste Control Act of 1990. So, what is the RA 6969? As stated sa Declaration Policy, it is an act that regulate, restrict, or prohibit the importation, manufacture, processing, sale, distribution, use, and disposal of chemical substances and mixtures that present unreasonable risk and or injury to health or the environment. Or in other words, ito raw yung act na nagkokontrol ng toxic substances and hazardous and nuclear waste, and ito rin yung act na nagbibigay ng penalties for violations thereof and for other purposes. Here are some examples of toxic substances and hazardous waste. We can notice na these kinds of waste are flammable, explosive rin siya, and toxic, na maaaring magkakos ng calamities and loss of properties and lives ng tao. And as you can see rin na sa ganitong uri ng mga waste is napakalaki yung impact and risk na dinadala nila sa health and sa environment if left unregulated. So, sino nga ba ang may responsibilities, functions, or power in terms sa pag-regulate and pag-control ng ganitong uri ng mga waste? So, as stated sa RA 6969, IR Chapter 2, Administrative Provisions, Section 7, it is the DENR daw, or the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, ang may responsibilities, power, and functions sa pag-control ng toxic substances, hazardous and nuclear waste, since sila din naman yung implementing agency ng act na ito. Listed here are the powers and functions ng DENR. In summary sa mga nakalista rito is, yung powers and functions daw ng DNR ay mag-implement ng distinct regulatory measures for hazardous and non-hazardous waste. Responsible din daw sila sa pag-regulate ng generation, collection, transport, storage, treatment, recycling, and disposal of waste. Included din sa function nila is to educate the populace para maging aware yung mga tao kung ano-ano yung effects ng chemical substances, mixtures, and waste on health and the environment. And also stated here na may power din daw ang DNR to call on any department, bureau, office, agency, state, university, or college, and other instrumentalities to provide resources or actions whenever man na may accidental or intentional incidents na mangyari kagaya ng spillage, leakage, release, and other chemical emergencies. So with the scope of this act, we can conclude that RA 6969 is to cover the importation, manufacture, processing, handling, storage, transportation, sale, distribution, use, and disposal of all unregulated chemical substances and mixtures in the Philippines, including the entry, even in transit, as well as the keeping or storage and disposal of hazardous and nuclear waste into the country for whatever purposes. Now moving on to another major environmental law, which is the RA 8749 or the Philippine Clean Air Act. So defining it by its declaration principle, it is an act wherein the state shall promote and protect the global environment to attain sustainable development while recognizing the primary responsibility of local government units to deal with the environmental problems. And also this act, it allows the state to recognize that a clean and healthy environment is for the good of all and should therefore be the concern of all. Yung act na ito is hindi lang concerned about sa cleaning the air, but also nire-recognize din ito yung pag-attain ng healthy environment through sustainable developments kagaya ng area-based cleaning of habitat and the principle na polluters must pay. We all know na in order for the society to improve or to progress, it has to consume energy. Therefore, it also have to burn fuel kagaya ng sa mga sasakyan, which is part ng improvement din ng society. Or aside from the green sources of energy, we also have to burn fossil fuels for us to have electricity. However, those burning fuels also have a byproduct na nakasama sa health ng tao and the environment, which is unsustainable. So CRA 8749 declared several as shown in this slide. What it meant here is that we have to balance the progress of the society while at the same time minimizing its effects on the environment. So itong mga nakastate na policies dito, bale ito yung framework sa pag-pursue ng sustainable development and for the environmental protection. Now let's proceed to the recognition of rights. As what stated earlier from the Declaration Principle, this act also let the state to recognize the rights of the citizen regarding sa pagkakaroon ng healthy and sustainable environment. So as shown here are the rights of the citizens that are recognized by the state through this act. For example, yung right na to breathe clean air, which is a fundamental right, human right din naman. Kasi of course, need naman natin to breathe clean air in order to survive or live a healthy life. And another example din na nakastate dito is we also have the right to bring action in court for compensation of personal damages resulting from the adverse environmental and public health impact of a project or activity. For example, may construction na ginagawa malapit sa area na kung saan na kayo nakatira. Pwede nyo sila idemanda yung construction site if ever man na yung method nila is nakaka-affect na sa quality ng air or nakaka-harm na sila sa health and environment ng community. Moving on to the composition and organizational setup of the board and their functions. Pinapakita lang dito is na yung act na ito, it mandates various government agencies to do the stated policies. For example, the Department of Transportation, which is sila yung nagsiset ng standards and nagtetest ng emissions ng mga sasakyan para malaman yung concentration and yung rate of emission ng pollutants discharged by the said sources. Another example naman is the Department of Science and Technology. So the DOST is also mandated by this act in order to establish a national research development program for the prevention and control of air pollution. All in all, yung pinaka-key point ng act na ito is to protect and advance the right of the people to a balanced and healthful ecology in accord with the rhythm and harmony of nature. So that's it for my part. Thank you for listening. The discussion will continue on the topic RA 9003, which will be discussed by my groupmate.
So to conclude, there exists environmental legislation and the review processes that these legislation go through before they are implemented. Environmental legislation are the laws and regulations concerning the environment and anything that would possibly affect it. We have NEPA, which is the backbone of the environmental laws, and the Council on Environmental Quality that enact the NEPA. We have the NEPA review process, and the three parts, which are the categorical exclusion determination, environmental assessment, finding of no significant impact, and environmental impact statements. Further was discussed the EIS and the implementation to the EIS when it is needed. And lastly, major environmental laws in the Philippines were discussed, 5 of them concerning respective parts of the environment. Thank you for your time, and we hope that we have discussed sufficiently the contents of the module.